We're joined by our senior counsel for global affairs, former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Title 42, the protection for the border, is set to expire a week from today. So, Secretary Pompeo, I want to get your take on this sound from National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan when he was asked about what the administration was doing to prepare for the end of Title 42 at the White House this week. It's only, again, a week away. Here it is.
Title 42 is expiring. Do you see a national security, are there national security concerns over the Title 42 expiration?
So the team has been working very hard to ensure that we are taking steps to be able to manage the expiration of Title 42 and to put in place a process that will be orderly and humane. And we believe that in doing so, we can protect our national security concerns. That is a process that others can speak to better than I can, but from my perspective, the issues related to ensuring an orderly, humane migration process at the border are being persistently and constantly addressed through the interagency process, and we are working through what the procedures will be in place at the moment of expiration on the 21st.
So there's their statement, but Secretary Pompeo, they're bracing for 14,000 migrants crossing the border a day.
Jordan, I'm not buying what National Security Advisor Sullivan said. There's no preparation for orderly humanitarian entrance of 14,000 people a day. I think about going to college basketball games at Wichita State, 10,000 people in that arena every game. That's like a full arena every single 24 hours. They haven't done the work because they don't want to do the work. The hard work is doing what we did, putting Remain in place back in Mexico, making clear to the Mexican government that you can't put these people, you can't escort them with police cars up the street in buses. That's just unacceptable to the United States of America. We're going to protect our sovereignty, and we're going to protect our national security. And I've seen no evidence that the Biden administration is intent on doing it. I think what you're really seeing is something that feels more like Ollie Oxenfree than a serious effort to defend America's sovereignty.
You know, Mike, I want to ask you this and to reflect a little bit about what you all did during your time in office. But we know, and we've got the subject to FOIA litigation that we're dealing with right now, Freedom of Information Act litigation, that the Biden administration canceled Operation Talon, which was the human trafficking program, which was so effective to find out what was going on. What were those effective measures that you did when you were in office that did impact, in a positive way, the border crisis, the border situation?
There were several. The first thing one needs to do is what I'll call the perception. We see all these folks. We see these long lines at the border. We see these pictures. These are people who have come to believe that they're going to be permitted to travel across the border and then be released inside the country. That is their perception. When that happens, they call their friends, their cousins, the people that they know, and they say, this is the right time to come. And you see the magnet, the pull of the United States of America. We turned that off by making clear that that wasn't going to be the case. We came to call it Remain in Mexico. Secondarily, we did the hard work. We enabled and empowered the CBP and the DHS officials more broadly to do the intelligence collection work to prevent fentanyl from coming across, to make sure that human trafficking was something that we took with a level of seriousness that justifies it. We were serious about creating humanitarian conditions that made sense to protect our southern border. These folks have literally turned open the gates, and you see the results. You see people from all across South America, and indeed all across the world, flocking to our southern border. There is no evidence that they are serious about stopping this, and the things that we did for 4 years that slowed this migration across our border, including building the wall, those things have been abandoned. Instead, the policy is, I hope these folks will come here and provide affordable labor for America. That's tragically dangerous for our country.
You know, Secretary Pompeo, we're starting to see some new names pop up in calling for increased border security. One of those, Gavin Newsom, of course, a border governor himself, but a far-left liberal governor. He's sounding the alarm. He visited the border about the end of Title 42. He joined a couple names we've heard often in this, Joe Manchin and Henry Cuellar, who have sent a letter to the administration. 4 Democrat senators sent a letter to Secretary Mayorkas demanding answers on the post-42 plan. Do you think there's going to be enough of a shift that enough Democrats in the House and the Senate, maybe some of these governors too, are going to stand up and say, we've only got a week here, and say, you have got to have a plan in place. We cannot deal with double the amount of people crossing the border every day.
I think Governor Newsom's statement is pure theater. If he were remotely serious about protecting the people of his state, about doing the hard work to make sure the people of Southern California are protected from this onslaught of illegal migration that's impacting all of their lives, right? It's increasing crime, it's increasing fentanyl, it's increasing all kinds of risks for the people of California. Were he remotely serious about this, he would have said something like this a long time ago. I think he was putting that out so that he can say, well, I tried to do something. Those of us who are serious about this know the hard work. It's not about sending letters and asking questions. It's about actually executing a border policy that does what the federal government is required to do by law. And the Biden administration is just, I don't see any evidence that a week from today, when Title 42 expires, that they're actually going to do that. And so what you will see is the several thousand coming across per day, traveling here illegally, will multiply 2, 3, 4 times every day.
There are reports that the administration is considering an asylum ban for a period of months to try to alleviate the situation. Does that help? And by the way, talking about bans, remember when I remember working with you and your team when we had we said there's some countries here that we think we need to stop this until we figure out what's going on, and they were screaming that we were engaged in acts of discrimination. And now the Biden administration, we're going to put in an asylum ban, not a peep on the other side. But will that help in a situation like this?
Yeah,
yeah. There
I
you
do
go.
Remember this? I was accused of being Islamophobe or racist. All
Exactly.
Kinds of stuff.
Right down memory lane. There you go.
Right. Yeah, I had put that away. Jay,
yeah.
Thanks for bringing it back up.
Yeah, anytime.
Look, if you put an asylum ban in place and actually enforce it, you could imagine that you will turn off the magnet. But Jay, they've had almost 2 years now to demonstrate how they really think about migration. It is truly a leftist progressive view that we should allow everyone. We should have essentially open borders. That's been in effect millions. I think the number now is 4.5, almost 5 million people that have come across the border in the first 2 years of this administration. Think about that. There's 330 million Americans. 5 million folks have come across the border in just 2 years. We've never seen this, and the ramifications for our society, for our country, are enormous.
We appreciate it. Mike Pompeo, of course, Senior Counsel for Global Affairs, Secretary of State. Thanks for being with us, Mike. We appreciate it.